So the idea that the Cleveland Cavaliers are the best team in the Eastern Conference is pretty universal, I would say. I'm not going to find too many people who don't believe they're going to make the NBA Finals, but the Eastern Conference has become very interesting over the past couple of weeks, and I think there are several teams who I wouldn't be surprised if they made the Eastern Conference to go against the Cavaliers. Of course, that means they're going to have to try to avoid the 4th seed, but I do think there's a few teams who could be really something in the conference, and I think those teams are the Toronto Raptors, the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, the Atlanta Hawks, and perhaps even the Charlotte Hornets, hell, maybe even the Indiana Pacers as well. The Eastern Conference is pretty damn wide open. So I figure, why not just talk about some of these teams, and perhaps by the end of this I'll convince myself that one of these guys is head and shoulders above the rest. Let's start with the Toronto Raptors, who are the 2 seed, who, in my opinion, I would still say is the second best team in the East if I had to pick one, because, I mean, look, the backcourt of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, it might be the second best in the league. It's a two-way backcourt as well. They're both pretty effective on both sides of the floor. DeRozan has really surprised me because his lack of a three-point shot hasn't killed him this season, because he just attacks the rim like a crazy person, so it makes up for it. He gets to the line like 6 or 7 times a game, if I'm not mistaken, on top of Lowry being just, still one of the best point guards in the league. My fear with Toronto is the power forward position, because Luis Scola, they've gotten by with him, but he's not exactly your ideal power forward for 2016. But at the same time, DeMarre Carroll's been injured for a while, so I think, Carroll's a natural 3, but I also think when he comes back, he can play some power forward for them and, be more defensive, as well as give them a small ball 4. I also think that'll give them more flexibility in terms of James Johnson, as well as Patrick Patterson at the power forward position, so I don't know if Toronto's ever going to have a solid starting power forward, but they might be able to do it by committee, and the rest of the roster is pretty damn strong. They might have the best bench in the NBA, because guys like Biyombo and Terrence Ross, James Johnson, who I mentioned a second ago, and then as well as Corey Joseph as backup point guard. Toronto's a pretty damn complete team. The question is that power forward spot, but I think they can get by. Next, let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks, who have kind of shifted themselves this season and become one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think the question for Atlanta is, are their wing players going to be good enough? Because Kyle Korver's had a down season. He's still shooting 40% from 3, so you can't leave him open, but not as good as last year. And then Kent Bazemore, he's been an okay successor to DeMarre Carroll. He's just not as good. I think for Atlanta, when they go up against a team like the Celtics, for example, who have Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder, they may really struggle with their athleticism on the wing. But at the same time, the flexibility of Al Horford and Paul Millsap at the front court positions, it's so good because both of them can stretch out to the mid-range and, to three-point land as well this season. Of course, they're both very good defensively. They do lack something on the boards, but and that could really hurt them against a team like Miami with Hassan Whiteside. But still, Atlanta, they're a good passing team. Jeff Teague's a good point guard, and they're very good defensively. But I do think there are a few holes that might hold the Atlanta Hawks back. And I spoke on Hassan Whiteside a second ago, so we'll dive into the Miami Heat. I was not a big fan of the Heat for the majority of the season because I thought they had a really slow offense, and yeah, very good defensively, but you got to be able to perform on both sides. And, but they have flipped the switch. They have sped the pace up. Part of this is because of the acquisition of Joe Johnson, which, in case we didn't realize it, Joe Johnson's still pretty damn good. He just didn't give a crap because he was in Brooklyn. But also, Mr. Josh Richardson, who came out of nowhere and has joined Hassan Whiteside in the where the hell did the Heat find this guy category. On top of, they run the small ball lineup of with Whiteside and Luol Deng and Richardson, and Goran Dragic is getting the ball more, and suddenly Miami is a lot scarier in my opinion. The question is, how are they going to be able to incorporate Dwayne Wade into that? Because, Wade, he likes his isolations, he likes his post-ups, and yeah, he's an efficient around 20-point scorer, but the fear is the only way for Wade to be effective is at the cost of everybody else, and of course we don't want that, so I think Miami's best bet might be to have Goran Dragic with the ball still and, utilize Dwayne Wade's ability to cut because he is a very good cutter. I mean, he's an extremely smart basketball player. Yeah, he's not a great shooter, but, he's Dwayne frickin' Wade. Like, the guy can figure it out, so... Now, luckily for Chris Bosh, his health scare was not as bad as we thought it was, and there's a chance he could come back. Given Miami's resurgence when it comes to running the floor and with Joe Johnson as well as Josh Richardson and how good Justice Winslow has been as a rookie, if they can figure out the Goran Dragic, Dwayne Wade dynamic as well as Chris Bosh coming back and everything he can do, I still think Bosh is their best player, Miami might be the second best team in the Eastern Conference if they can just keep this up and if Chris Bosh can come back. Now let's talk about my favorite team, the Boston Celtics. Probably the most well-coached team out of any of these guys since Brad Stevens is basically God at this point. Mike Budenholzer's really good as well, and Dwayne Casey has actually won me over as the season has gone on. I'm still not a fan of his late game stuff, but everything he does for the first 44 minutes is pretty damn good. The Celtics, they're tough, they play together, they play hard. Defensively, they are pretty damn scrappy, especially on the perimeter with Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder, which it's got to be one of the best set of defensive wings in the league without really thinking about it. Of course, their shooting with those two is pretty damn solid as well. The thing with the Celtics is they're not going to beat themselves. They're effective on both sides of the floor. Brad Stevens does a fantastic job in late game situations, out of bounds plays, and Isaiah Thomas under Brad Stevens is one of the toughest guys in the league to defend, even if he's only 5'9". So, if anybody thinks the Celtics are going to be an easy series for anyone, gotta say I disagree with you. Now, as of right now, they are the 4th seed, so they're probably going to want to get out of there because they're not beating Cleveland. If they can get to number 3, they would be up against the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, I could picture them beating the Hornets. I could picture any of these teams beating anyone, which is the really crazy part about the Eastern Conference. So yeah, the Celtics are good. As for other teams in the East, Charlotte Hornets, Kemba Walker has surprised me. He's just gotten better. Marvin Williams has elevated himself to a god-tier role player status as he's provided Charlotte with three-point shooting. I'm pretty sure he's playing a lot of power forward for them. Kind of like Josh McRoberts a few seasons ago. Nicholas Batum's having a bounce-back year, which you kind of figured he would do since his hand is recovered now, and teams will be throwing a lot of money at him in free agency, as they should. And now, because this video is getting kind of long, I'll just say I like the Pistons and the Pacers moving forward. I don't know about this season compared to the top teams in the East. Of course, it'll be funny when one of those guys ends up in the conference finals. And then Chicago's interesting because Derrick Rose has had a pretty damn good March, and Jimmy Butler just came back. So if that can hold up, well, look out rest of the East, because Chicago might be the second best team. Anyway, that's going to do it. Talking about some of the teams in the Eastern Conference. If I had to put a ranking on it, I would say I still believe Toronto to be the second best team. And I think the difference between Miami and Boston is pretty minimal. I just think they're both a little better than Atlanta. And, yeah, so that's it. And I'm out.